So, hello and welcome to the MindBody Learning Zone monthly chat. This month, we're going to be talking about our beliefs and how they underpin our thoughts and behaviours, and why thinking alone doesn't always actually change our beliefs. We'll also share with you a tabletop exercise, which you can do yourself to help change your self-limiting beliefs. I'm Amanda Collins, and I'm a trauma and internal family systems wellbeing coach. And I use energy psychology techniques to help my clients along their personal recovery journey from chronic pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and other persistent symptoms. And my aim is always to empower my clients to understand their self on a deeper level to help bring back their joy into their life. And I have the pleasure of introducing my co-host, Carole Randell, and who's also the co-founder of the MindBody Learning Zone. So, Carole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Amanda. As Amanda has said, my name is Carole Randell. I'm a psychotherapist, and I work mainly with clients who come with medically unexplained symptoms of long-term pain. So you've been to all the consultants, you've had all the scans, they can't find anything, and yet you're still in pain. And it's really a learning journey, I guess. And this is where I'm very excited about talking about beliefs today, because that's quite a big core part of recovery.
And that's what we're going to find out today, more about why they are so important.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. What are core beliefs? A bit like me, I'm sure you've never questioned your beliefs ever. So they really are general truths that we believe about ourselves, about others, about our world. And actually, as I said, we've never really questioned whether they're really true or not. And as we know, having positive beliefs can empower us to take action and move us forward, whereas negative beliefs can be much more judgmental and potentially harmful and holding ourselves back. So let's have a think now about why our beliefs are so important. So I love this slide. It's vibrant, it's active, and it's very easy to see with the different colours why beliefs are so important. So essentially, a belief is an internal feeling that something is true for us. It may not be true, of course, and it may also be irrational. Now, there's a difference between our beliefs and our values. Our value is very much a measure of our worth and the importance that we attach to something. And our values are often reflected in the way we live our lives. For example, you might go into a situation or be with a person or be at an event or, at work or whatever it is. And if it doesn't feel right, that will mean that it's not matching your values. And then we come to attitude. So our attitude is the way that we express or the way we apply our beliefs and values. And we do this through words and behaviours.
So following on from Carole, research has confirmed that our brain cells actually translate the mind's perception of the world around us, our beliefs. And they transform that into a unique chemical profile that actually secretes into our blood and goes to every single cell of our body. And we've got 50 trillion cells in our body. So when we change the way we perceive the world, and basically we change our belief, we actually change the blood's neurochemical composition, which then initiates a change in all the body cells of our body. So you can see now that beliefs really is that foundation on the bottom. What we believe sort of has an effect on our values in life, and we're going to cover that in a separate talk at a later date, our values. But our beliefs and our values actually create then our thoughts, and our thoughts create our emotions. Now, this is all done in the subconscious area of our brain. And then consciously, we have these, as you say, these subconscious thoughts and emotions, but consciously then we have behaviors. And the results is when we actually take actions. We actually do something or not do something. But the important thing to remember is they're actually, all of this is based on our beliefs right at the bottom and our values. So from that, Carole, we can see how our beliefs really are that foundation of everything that we believe. And like what you said in the beginning slides, a belief doesn't actually necessarily have to be true to be our belief. We can hold a belief without having the facts that whether it's true or not. That's why it's a belief, isn't it? But how important it is to our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah. So I quite often say to people, our beliefs become things, as in actualities, based on our perceptions or thoughts around the world as we know it, our values.
Exactly. And that brings us lovely into this quote from Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
And in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, he says, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. And I think, just taking those words is so powerful, isn't it, Carole?
Very wise, very wise. If we could live our lives by that, then I think we might feel happier and healthier.
Exactly. So simple sometimes, isn't it? Why positive thinking alone does not always work. Now, neuroscience has established that the conscious mind runs the show at best only 5% of the time. And it turns out that the programs acquired by the subconscious mind, so remember, those are our thoughts, our values, our beliefs, or what we showed on the other side, actually shape 95% or more of our life experiences. So the neurological processing ability shows that the subconscious mind is more than 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. If the desires of the conscious mind conflict with the programs of the subconscious mind, which mind do you think is actually going to win? And that's really interesting, Carole, isn't it? That, often, in last month, we talked about resolutions and how we wanted to change things. And we spoke about that if those things we wanted to change actually conflicted with our beliefs and values, which are held in that subconscious part of our brain, our mind, how it wasn't, they were too hard. We would fail at our resolutions, isn't it?
Absolutely. So that conflict is really the thing to start to look at and question those beliefs when you feel conflicted of why something isn't happening.
Yeah.
We'd like it to, then let's start to readdress what those beliefs are. So our beliefs, where do they come from? Between the age of 0 and 7, we're like a sponge and we soak up absolutely everything that we're told. And this is where our beliefs start. So we learn it from a very early age through our parents, through schools, through our cultures, through our religions and the authority figures such as teachers. We also learn our beliefs through personal experiences. We're going to go into that in a little bit more detail further down these slides and this recording. It also comes from our past traumatic events. Now, we can be in a group of people all having the same event that might be traumatic to some people, but it's not to everyone, and that's based on our belief system. So you can start to see now how really important beliefs are, and how by questioning them we can change our experience of our understanding of why we're impacted on things. So as I said, they start in early childhood, and these are some of those self-limiting beliefs and concepts that we take through. I won't read them all because you're very capable of reading them, but some of them, like I'm not good enough, that's a message that I know through my childhood, particularly at school and parents, was reinforced time after time. Around money, I'm just not good with money. Well, in my education, maths lessons stopped at the age of 14, believe it or not, because I only needed enough knowledge to balance my husband's accounts. That goes to show how old I am. And guess what my first job was? It was in an accounts office doing payroll.
Wow.
Can you see how I was led to believe I was no good at maths? But actually I was. If I put my mind to it and changed that belief, I went in to do something that actually I turned out to be reasonably okay at.
And that's why beliefs are so important, isn't it? To look at those beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we get around and how do we understand what our self-limiting beliefs might be? So we can make a list of them, and we're going to, as I said, you've just seen a few examples there, so make your own lists and have a think about, are they true? Do they hold me back? We also know that those self-limiting beliefs can really impact our decision making, our confidence, our ability to communicate with others. They can really stop us doing all those things we'd really love to do in life, and therefore stop us reaching our full potential. So this is about that inner critic, that self-talk that we have going on in our heads, and we know for a fact we would never speak to other people the way we speak to ourselves. So if you find yourself saying any of the following: I am no good at, others are better than me, the world is scary, the future, I don't want to even think about that. Have a look and think about, well, what might be those self-limiting beliefs that you're carrying through with you?
Those are really good points, Carole. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it is important for us to listen to our self-talk, how we talk about ourselves with things, isn't it? Because that gives us clues, doesn't it?
Yeah. You can so easily talk yourself out of doing things jobs in the past. I've talked myself out of, there's no point in me going for that, for example, because I haven't got this qualification or, I haven't got that experience. Well, actually, that's not always what people are. They might have it in the advert, but that's not necessarily what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who will bond with the team, who might be able to, move the team forward. And you can always put additional people with different skills in place to help support you to do things.
And I think, you hear me sometimes say, my belief is like, well, I'm really rubbish at English, I can't, write anything or do things. But actually giving myself time to do these things, when I'm not feeling very stressed about it, I can actually, or verbally talk about these ideas. And then it's like, actually, I could just write this down. Yeah. And once I've taken that pressure off of that belief, I can't do it with my dyslexia, actually, then it's like, sometimes I read through something I've written, I'm thinking, actually, that sounded quite intelligent. Who wrote that? It's like, actually, you did. But once you've got over that fear of I couldn't do it, then that helps. But it is having that belief, and those beliefs, like you said, come, from an early age, don't they? And I remember being called lazy by my first year infant school teacher. And, it's like, it's lazy, I can't do it. And it's like, well, no, because I needed at that moment in time a little bit extra help. So it's not always clear cut, is it, where we get our beliefs from? We have sometimes a bit of a distorted view.
Yeah. And I think it's also about labels, isn't it? We accept the label that we're given as true, as if it's told to us by other people, when in fact we've got lots of evidence it's not true.
Yeah.
As we go into our adult sense of self. Yeah.
So secondary gain. With every behavior we have, there is a payoff. So even being ill or having pain can become a way for us to avoid something we don't want to do or that is challenging for us. So do you have a belief that is stopping you moving forward with your life? So our buttons being triggered. So whenever our beliefs are challenged, we might notice our buttons being pressed. So that's when emotions come up. We can feel an internal resistance based on our beliefs, and often our need actually to always be right. So when we get triggered, ask yourself, what is alive in me now? What belief has shown up? You can also ask, is this belief still serving me?
So if we did ask our question, is this belief still serving me, or is this behavior still serving me, then we can question, is it a belief of mine that's actually not really mine to keep carrying? Can I change it? How can I change it?
Yeah, and I think, like what you were saying, you know, how do we know we got these beliefs and these self-limiting beliefs? And it's like, yeah, I can't, you know, that comes up. Well, I can't do that. You know, I can't spell, so I can't write a blog. I can't do this, you know, I'm no good at public speaking, so I can't do that. And actually, you know, I mean, just even an example of us working together now, isn't it? It's like if I held on to all those beliefs now, they wouldn't be serving me. They'd be keeping me very small, because keeping me small is like keeping me safe, isn't it? It's like, well, nobody can, you know, tell me I said something wrong, or, you know, spelt something wrong if I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So are we saying if we feel challenged about something, it might be our belief underneath it?
I think so. And exactly that, an emotion comes up, doesn't it? So you know, I know in the past people have asked me to do things, and then all of a sudden, you know, I remember once I was asked to take minutes of a meeting and it was really funny. And, you know, first of all, an emotion comes up. It's like, I can't do that, you know, that's not, you know, I can't do that. And that fear comes up. And at that moment in time, it's actually like, right, okay, my button is being triggered. This emotion has come up. What's all that about?
Yeah.
What is the belief underneath that? And my belief is I'm dyslexic, I can't take minutes. And actually it worked out that actually I am dyslexic and I couldn't take the minutes, and they never asked me again.
Well, then you can keep that belief.
So actually that belief was a true belief. I didn't manage to to get the minutes done very good on that one, but it got me out of doing something that I didn't want to do. But again, it did get me out of something I didn't want to do, you know. So we can use that belief sometimes to keep us safe, or actually to hold us back. So it's a case of just exploring that, isn't it? Not every belief is a self-negative belief, and not every belief and what I was going to say is some beliefs are actually there to keep us safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
The belief is if I walk to the edge of that cliff, it could give way and I could drop down. That's a good belief to have. Actually, and that might be true, mightn't it? But, you know, if you were all harnessed up and all safe and you're now doing a bungee jump, which I would never do, you know, it's like, well, no, I can go to that edge because I'm safe to do that. And, you know, in a controlled manner, I can.
So I think we're not saying to everybody, you know, start to, you know, put a spotlight on all your beliefs, find out what it is that's holding you back or whatever it is. This is just something to be aware of, that it's there in, you know, we've all got these beliefs, these beliefs, and where they might have come from. And, you know, if they're not serving you, then have a relook at them, I guess is what we're saying. Looking at your beliefs, noticing the patterns that are there, you know, is it stopping you doing something? You know, where did it come from? We've also covered some of that. Where's this belief come from? And we're going to go through an exercise, as Amanda was talking about challenging these beliefs, or a belief at least, and how to reframe that into a new, more positive belief instead. So this tabletop exercise, I first came across this with Tony Robbins in one of his big, what would you call it, venues, where he starts to look at beliefs and try and change them with you. And actually, by doing this exercise, I ended up doing a fire walk, believe it or not, which was quite incredible. So he says, you know, take a table and draw the top rectangle and write on there a belief that might be holding you back, and ask yourself the questions. Let's have a look for the evidence first of all. You know, what is true? What's been happening in my life where I can find evidence that this belief is actually true? what might be the disadvantages of holding on to this belief? Is it stopping me going forward? Is it stopping me getting on in life? Is it stopping me making changes? And if I continue to have this belief or avoid doing the things that I need to make the changes, what effect might this have on me, perhaps in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or even 5 years' time, if I don't make those changes? Will I have got to where I would really like to be? So we then have a look at creating a new empowering belief once we've understood what is supporting that old limiting belief that we've got. So we want to look at this as a new positive statement. We look again for the evidence to support a new belief about how it would make us feel. What would the advantages be of having this new belief? What would it mean to me to feel this in a different way? How might it affect my life? And what might my life look like again in, say, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years' time if I changed this belief? I wonder where I might get to. So we're just going to use an example here. We've talked about being bad at maths, and this is why we chose this one, because it was meaningful to me. So it runs in the family. I was given to believe that women weren't any good with numbers, figures, or maths. I was probably the last generation whereby we were taught how to look after our husbands and our kids. So those beliefs that I took on board was that, I'd marry somebody who was, in a position to kind of keep me, as it were. But of course, we know that that's a very old-fashioned way of thinking. I do know that I used to get maths questions wrong, but who doesn't when they're learning? But it depends on the teacher, doesn't it, as well? And about whether or not they've got the time, patience, and energy to actually sit down with you and say, look at it like this. And I was very lucky when I got to about 15. I had a teacher that showed me patterns in numbers, and that really flipped a switch for me, because up to that point I didn't think I was any good at maths. I did used to make silly mistakes all the time, because if I was put under pressure to when you did your times tables, for example, I would just panic. My front thinking brain would completely switch off, and I would almost kind of be in that frozen kind of state, and I couldn't get the right answers. So I was quite often ridiculed or told, oh, for God's sake, you haven't been learning properly, go and sit down, whatever it might be, go out the room. All those sorts of things were creating this belief that actually I was bad at maths. So if I was to look at this as a self-limiting belief, was it true? Actually, it wasn't. This was about other people, very much about other people, and picking up what their beliefs were. There was a lot more to this story than, I was bad at maths. There was a lot around other people being less than supportive. There was a lot around, being the time that I was born in. And there was definitely another explanation for all of this as well, because I came from very what's the word I'm looking for?
Disempowering of women.
Yeah, a very dysfunctional family background. So I didn't have that feeling of safety or somebody sitting down and talking me through these things. So I started to question the evidence. Am I good at maths? Well, actually, guess what? We've already covered some of this. I could manage my bank account perfectly okay. I can actually do the figures when I'm calm and have time and space to myself to do things. I went to work in an accounts office, and worked through payroll. I then went on to do financial accounting in my business degree. I can follow patterns in things. So actually my new belief was, and I had evidence for this, that actually I am actually quite good at maths, and I didn't need to hold on to that old self-limiting belief.
Thank you, Carole, for that exercise is so good to do, isn't it? With any self-limiting belief you've got, flip it over to that positive one, and then start looking at all that new evidence that supports those. And I think, just an example with your maths one, sometimes we just think as maths as in what we learned at school, don't we? And it's just like, the times tables and things like that. I had to stand up and do the times table. It was horrible, wasn't it? But it's also, we can look for evidence in other things. Like there you said, I can follow a knitting pattern. Well, that is increasing, decreasing, counting your numbers, dividing things up. It's like sometimes looking for this evidence in other places where, it's like, I'm no good at public speaking, you could say, but actually, I can talk to the teachers of my children about things, or I can explain myself to my doctor when I need to get something over. So it's looking at other evidence in other places, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As well. And then all of a sudden you think, actually, I am pretty good at this, really, because in other situations I can do these things.
Yeah.
But I think also what was a good point that you said earlier on, it's looking at, is there an earlier memory that is associated with, not being very good or holding on to this belief? Is there a memory that goes with it?
And I think a lot around the culture of the time I was brought up in as well, that women weren't expected to go into the workplace. So there's a lot around, well, what did I need to learn? And that was basically cooking, cleaning, managing the household accounts and looking after kids. That's all that was expected of me. And yet here I am today, in a very different world.
And I was lucky that I read this the other day. My year at school, so my first year at secondary school, was the first year in comprehensive schools that girls were allowed to do woodwork.
Oh, well. Allowed to do, I like
yes, allowed to do the woodwork, and boys were allowed to do, the needlework and things. But it's interesting, as you say, times change, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, I can do this. I am good at that, but it's looking back, where does that belief come from? Is it my belief? Is it a family belief? Is it a cultural belief? Is it an experience that I've had? Is it something that somebody said to me? Have I felt unsafe before with this? So my belief now is, if I believe this, because that keeps me safe, isn't it? So it's looking at that, isn't it? And that brings us on to energy psychology. Now, we've talked about disempowering programs in our subconscious mind can be quickly rewritten, these beliefs we've held onto, with energy psychology. So techniques like emotional freedom technique, and you've already seen me doing some tapping. Matrix re-imprinting, that's another one that me and Carole use, which is actually a real beautiful technique, which we'll go into more in part 2. Mental field technique is another tapping technique. ART, which is autonomic response testing, biofeedback guided counselling. That's another one we'll explain. Family constellations. This is important when we were talking more about where our beliefs come from, and sometimes they could be handed down to us. So we can work with family constellation work. Carole's done embodied processing, so we'll talk a bit more about that in the next one. Carole is a trained hypnotherapist, and I've done clinical hypnotherapy for childbirth, but we turned a little bit on beliefs there, whether it hurts or not, and it's interesting how that hypnotherapy can help change those beliefs. And also the balance procedure. Now, I'll be talking more about these in a little bit more depth in our beliefs part 2 session next month. So Carole and I wanted to share some book recommendations with you. So Bruce Lipton's thoughts are that it is widely recognized that genes and DNA do not control our biology. Instead, they are controlled by signals from outside the cell, including energetic messages emanating from our thoughts. And he explains this more in his book, The Biology of Belief. Another good book to read is by Candice Pert, In Molecules of Emotions. Now, Pert reveals how her study of information processing receptors on nerve cell membranes led her to discover that the same neural receptors were present on most, if not all, the body cells. So it's not just the brain, it's the body cells. Her elegant experiments established that the mind was not focused just in the head, but it was distributed via signal molecules through the whole body. So David Hamilton, he's one of my favorite authors on this subject. So he says that research shows that belief causes biochemical changes in the brain and body. An apple would reduce pain for somebody if they believed it would, because their belief would actually produce the brain's own painkillers. And they're called endogenous opioids.
So really what all of these authors are saying is that, and research people are saying, is that as humans, we have the incredible ability to adapt, survive, and integrate to help us grow stronger. We can change our beliefs and we can reframe our self-limiting beliefs. And I got quite fascinated by this whole beliefs thing, as has Amanda. And the more you start to delve into it, the more you realize how much you're carrying around that really doesn't belong to you.
And I think that is so true, isn't it? And I think in our work, we're well-being coaches. We've got all these other techniques. But for me, it's like going to the beliefs first. I have found to be so much more time effective, really, and cost effective for the client, to be honest, because we could be doing all of this coaching with somebody, but if their belief is really whatever their belief is, that I'm not good enough. Now that one comes up so much with our clients, doesn't it? And I think if we don't address something like that, or I never be well, or it's always going to hurt, if we don't actually look at those beliefs early on, I think sometimes, we can get so much better results, can't we, when we look at those beliefs and work on those.
Something's just popped into my head, actually, Amanda. Dr. Dan Ratner from Crushing Doubt, I was listening to him once and he said, what if your life has been lived around what you've learned, i.e. beliefs from people? How different might your life be like if you lived it by what you were taught? Yeah, and that's really stuck in my mind.
So yes, been an interesting conversation about beliefs. I mean, I'm going to go more in depth with the techniques that me and Carole use to help our clients looking at those beliefs that we hold in part 2. So look out for that.
So I don't know about you, but kind of it blows your mind when you start to think about beliefs and, how have I ended up here and all those sorts of things. So, we are available for questions, we are available for discovery calls as well. So do think about what your needs are, think about what your beliefs are, and come and have that conversation and contribute in the MindBody Learning Zone on Facebook group as well, because that's where we do our learning. And you can definitely kind of deep dive behind what is happening for you and why you are feeling the way you are and how you're experiencing life. So Amanda is from Restoring Balance Wellness Clinic down in Dorking, and you can see her web address on there. And I am Chronic Pain Relief Online Clinic based in West Sussex, and you can see my website there to find out more about who we are.
So thank you so much, Carole, for sharing that lovely tabletop exercise with us as well. So lots for people to do here, isn't it? So like what you've said before, go back, pause, there's lists to write, maybe do a couple of tabletop exercises. Let us know how you get on, like you said, in the Facebook group and things. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one, because Carole's going to be in New Zealand and doing something that she wants to do with proving that she could work in the two different countries. So, you know, she's challenging her beliefs.
I am, absolutely, and my husband's too.
Yes, so we look forward to hearing all about that, Carole. Yeah. So we look forward to seeing you soon. So bye for now.
Bye everyone. Bye.